Today I'll be talking about a solution which CyberArk has come up with recently to tackle problems relevant to working from home, which are kind of on the go during this COVID-19 crisis, right? To begin with, I'd like to introduce you to CyberArk as a company, right? So, CyberArk is a 21-year-old company which primarily focuses on privilege access management, which is considered to be quite critical when it comes to managing the IT security part of it, right? The main objective of having a PAM solution such as CyberArk is to offer protection or manage the assets, which could be on premises or it could be also on the cloud, right? More than 50% of Fortune 500 companies, they are using CyberArk to protect against the password relevant attacks or to manage their privileged accounts, right? When it comes to the reports claim that as per Gartner Magic, as you see on the screen, it stands as a leader in most of the market research organizations, right? And when it comes to the C3 alliances that CyberArk has partnered with, includes SAP, Palo Alto Networks, Fortinet, WorkFusion, etc. Right? So you could say PAS is a solution which continuously discovers and manages privileged accounts and credentials. Additionally, it records and monitors privileged sessions as well as you're doing an activity. Let's say that there is a consultant who has walked into your office for so-and-so task. It could be penetration testing, or it could be a regular audit check. It could be anything, right? So what you would want to do potentially is to track the activities of that particular consultant, right? And CyberArk does it for you. All you have to do is just onboard that particular consultant onto CyberArk PAM solution, and once you do so, whatever he does in his remote session, it could be on Windows Server, it could be on Linux Server, it could be any third-party application, all of the activities which are being performed are being logged and stored in the form of video recordings. Now, in what way is it offering us the protection? So let's say that now all we are doing in a typical PaaS solution is that we store all the credentials that we have all across the organizations onto a hardened server that we call it as Vault, right? And we use a CPM server, that's another component of CyberArk, to manage and rotate the credentials as per the password policy that you set, okay? And then there is a PVWA component which is used by the users to interact with CyberArk. It's a GUI. Okay, it's running over IAS. Then, finally, there is a PSM component involved, the fourth mandatory component, I would say. So that component is used to record the sessions and give you access to the end servers. Now, if you put together all these things, you can always look at PAM as a solution which is kind of giving you an ability to forget all of your passwords because everything is managed by CyberArk itself. All you need to do is remember one single credential, that is credential to the CyberArk. And you can see all your accounts inside. And once you connect, you get the access or the secure access through the PSM server, Privileged Sessions Manager. Right? Additionally, it has multiple other components such as EPM, AIM, Conjure, Alero, etc. So additionally, using all the components in hand, you can manage your DevOps network. You can also enforce privileged access management on the end servers, as in you can control what a user can do or cannot do. You can also enforce functions such as application control, etc. Right? Now, this is what typically a PaaS is expected to be doing. Right? Now, the concern today, right now, as we are standing, is the remote workforce, right? So we need to make sure that our users, especially in this COVID-19 crisis, they are able to access the resources which they generally do seamlessly plus security in a much secured manner, we could say. So CyberArk has come up with Alero. Alero is another cloud component, right? We'll see how exactly the backend flow is when it comes to Alero, right? So the first question that we need to ask ourselves is that, is our organization ready for remote work yet? We don't have any options as of now, but most of the time there are consultants who are working from home, or they could be offshore, or they are just not allowed to get inside the premises depending on the nature of organization. There could be multiple reasons. So we need to be ready to work or let a user work from home or work remotely, we could say. All right? So when it comes to remote vendor breaches, they are quite common. An example of this could be, let's say that you would want to perform auditing on your network, right? So what you do is that you talk to one of the organizations, let's say they are based out of the US, right? Now, how can we give him access to the resources which he needs to access so as to perform his auditing, right? So we generally give him a VPN access, and once we provision the VPN access, all he needs to do is enable the VPN, create a tunnel onto our premises, and then he has access to the resources. Well, the problem here is that what if, you know, some of the organizations, like you could say some of the internet service providers or some of the government organizations, they are still sticking to the traditional technology such as secure remote or traditional access VPNs, etc., right? So in such cases, what happens is that they get the connectivity, but the problem is administrators of the company, of the customer, they don't have the granular controls to give them access to specific resources. For example, in the case of secure remote, what happens is that the moment a consultant connects, he has access to the entire segment, not to one or two systems, right? Secondly, we saw a couple of breaches when it comes to SSL version 3, TLS version 1.2, right? So when a handshake is going on, there is a strong possibility that these ciphers can be exploited, or a combination of these ciphers can be exploited. Well, if you have the latest systems in hand, you can, of course, you can get rid of the last one, as in you can make sure that you're choosing the right ciphers, and then you can get rid of that. But then you never know of the zero-day attacks. So you need to be cautious about whatever you're doing, right? So let's assume that, okay, let's assume another case where, let's say that the remote user has actually connected. But what if the system of the remote user itself is hacked or compromised? Right? So what a hacker can do in his system is that he can take out the credentials, he can take a memory dump of his entire system, and then with which he should be able to find the passwords which are for the VPN. Now hacker can masquerade the identity of the consultant, and now since the consultant is provisioned with secure remote or equivalent, he has access to the entire segment, right? Which can lead to a very dreadful attack. Right? So what we need right now, what is the idealistic solution? We'll talk about that in a shorter while. So we know that this slide basically talks about how much trust should we be extending to our third-party vendors. How much trust can we provide to the remote employees? How much trust should we be providing to IT service providers, supply chain vendors, etc., who walk into our office on daily basis, or they might be working remotely, right? Or our job is to basically interact with them in regular intervals because of we might have outsourced some kind of a job to them, right? So we need to make sure that we have right posture policy in place. We need to have that zero trust established. The whole crux is that we need to have that zero trust framework in place, as in there should be right posture, right? And then user should be using appropriate biometric authentication, right? There shouldn't be use of any passwords, because passwords are easily hackable via birthday attacks, or it could be brute force attack, dictionary attack, etc. Right? So now, this is another example of how a remote user can be exploited. For example, let's say that this is the customer premises. Now, a remote user, it could be a consultant, it could be an employee, is accessing those resources using VPN, right? And if his or her system is compromised, this hacker can masquerade the identity of the genuine consultant, and he can gain access to the end system. And everything which is connecting from his VPN can be, of course, exploited. And then using the lateral movement, a larger chunk of the organization can be exploited. Right? Issues can also arise when, let's say that the job is over, the task is over. It could be an audit task, it could be penetration testing, it could be regular accounting task, it could be anything. Let's say the job has been executed. If the end consultant is not diligent about notifying the administrator of the end customer that, hey, my job is done, you can turn off the VPN now, which is quite common. Most of them, they are not really diligent about this, right? So if this is happening, then there is a persistent channel which is opened, right? Anybody can access it at any point of time, right? So what we are relying on these days is a network-based access solution. As in, we focus mostly on access, giving them the access. We don't really focus on giving them the access the right way, right? And giving them access the right way is basically a zero trust access, which is considered to be the idealistic solution, right? So what is the idealistic solution over here? It is not to use any VPNs, because in VPNs you might have to open certain ports, right? You might have to open port number. You should be opening up the ports for IKE, IPsec, etc. If you're using SSL, you need to open ports for SSL, right? And then most of the cases, in 99% of the cases, what you need to do is you need to install an agent on the end system, right? And what if the end user has a system which is of lesser RAM? Then of course you are going to consume a lot of RAM. There could be a possible performance impact. So you should be considerate about all these factors. We need to make sure that the whole sign-in process, the whole process of accessing the end resource should be seamless as well as secure enough to tackle any sort of attack, right? There shouldn't be any use of passwords, because though you could set the password complexity to be really good, but then in the end it's a password. You can get the hashes of that and then you can have it exploited, right? So, and we know that there are a lot of password attacking techniques, such as birthday attacks, and then hash attack, pass the hash, golden ticket attack. There are a lot of there out there. There are a lot of automated solutions out there. If you go to Kali Linux, you have thousands of such methods which you can use to get the passwords. There could be social engineering, there could be reversal. There are a lot of out there, right? So this is the right time when we get rid of passwords totally. So what is the replacement? What is the right replacement for that? The right replacement is binding the identity to the login process. It could be in the form of biometric authentication, or it could be in the form of face ID reading. It could be in the form of any advanced multi-factor authentication, right? So, and then we know that when it comes to providing the network access through VPN, it can be quite complicated, because what you need to do is first you need to configure the whole thing, and then you get, of course, there is a lot of approval chain involved. Apart from that, you need to make sure that you configure it the right way, you test the configurations, then you configure the policies, again you test it up, right? There is a lot of complications involved. What if the negotiations fails? At times what happens is that the end system might be hardened, end user system might be hardened, or it is not just allowing the VPN access because of the GPO of entity's company, right? So you need to have a solution which is giving you that privilege to overcome all the complexities. It should be just in time, self-provisionable, easy to go kind of a access, right? And of course we need to have a solution which is simple, easy to use, and then there shouldn't be any challenges involved over here. And of course in the end it should be secure enough, right? So the idealistic solution here in this case is CyberArk Alero, right? So how Alero can help you is that it gives you access to the desirable resources, right, through the cloud tenant. Even if you're working from home, or you could be working from you could be at some other place, you could be in the coffee shop, you could be anywhere. It gives you access to the end resources which you would want to access, right? So what it does is it's providing you zero trust access, right? By making sure that you're using biometric authentication, by making sure that you're not opening any ports. You don't really have to open any ports. Plus you use biometric authentication, and then it's easily provisionable. You don't really have to put in any sort of hard work. You just enroll and then it's good to go, right? So if we talk about the architecture over here, so let's assume this is the customer premise, and CyberArk PaaS solution, as in the combination of Vault, CPM, PSM, PVWA, right? All these components are present behind the firewall, right? And then all you need to do is you need to just get the CyberArk Alero cloud tenant access from CyberArk. And once you get that, all you need to do is download the connector from the CyberArk Alero itself, which is easily downloadable. There is just a download button over there. You click it, and then you get access. You can just download that CyberArk Alero connector. And what you do is that you need to connect that Alero connector onto the PVWA component. Why do you need to connect it to PVWA component only? Because PVWA component is the one which is providing you the GUI access. and then you plug it to the PWA component. And once you plug it, right, you have your communication channel established between the Alero connector, which is residing on your PWA component, to Alero. And all you need to do is, from your side, being an end user, being a remote employee, you could be a consultant, you could be an employee, right? So all you have to do is just type in the tenant URL. And once you type in the tenant URL, all you need to do is you need to scan a barcode which appears on the page. I'll show you this practically in a while once we get on to the demonstration part of it. And then all you need to do is download the Alero application from your Play Store or Apple Store. And once you do it, just scan that barcode. And once you have it scanned, it fetches all the information which is relevant to you. And yes, your provision, your access should be provisioned by the CyberArk administrator in the core patch solution. So it's going to verify if you are the right person who is accessing, are you authorized to access those resources, right? And on the basis of authentication, presence, and authorization, it's going to provision you the access, right? It's as simple as that. And then, of course, you have the access to your PWA component, right? Whatever you see generally inside the CyberArk, you'll be able to see it. And all you need to do is just connect to your end resource, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so you can see here that now, just a while back, we were talking about zero trust access. The whole concept of zero trust access is to make sure that you're not opening any ports, right? So the reason why you don't really have to open any ports is because you, as an end user, you are talking to CyberArk Alero, and then connector is always initiating a channel with the Alero. So it's not Alero which is initiating the challenge. And since Alero connector is initiating the challenge, CyberArk Alero just needs to give a TCP response. That's it. So that's the reason why you don't really have to open up any specific ports, right? And now, talking about the architecture over here. So now let's say that I have logged into CyberArk Alero, and then I have access to my PWA, right? So the question is, how is my traffic flowing? Is it kind of plain, as in, am I accessing the end resources on port number 22? Let's say I'm taking a SSH of a Linux server. So is it going on port number 22, or is it going on port number 443, or how is it going, right? So in the case of Linux, we generally use port number 22 to access it. So what happens is that when you are when you are accessing a Linux server, the whole communication will be TLS over SSH tunnel, as in it would be using port 443. So there is going to be a handshake. You are secure with the most secure ciphers. TLS version 1.3 you can use as long as your browser supports it, right? And then for the RDP session, it's going to be TLS over RDP. Right? So whatever you are accessing, it is on a secure port. It's not really running on any insecure ports. Now, the good part about this, the additional thing that you need to deploy is the HTML5 gateway. Why do you have to deploy HTML5 gateway? Because every time you connect to a specific resource, it opens up another tab in the browser itself. So you're not really having the RDP window. It's rather opening the component inside the browser itself. So this is the reason why you need to have HTML5, so that your browser can, or you could say, so that the browser gets the ability to open an additional tab and give you access to the end resources, right? Good enough. So now, when it comes to onboarding, this is the application. This is how the application looks like. The application which you need to install on your smartphone, right? And if you don't have a smartphone, you could make use of multi-factor authentication, which is also configurable in the case of your CyberArk Alero, right? All you need to do is you need to provide your face ID, so that in future you can authenticate right on the basis of your face. Okay, and then you need to enter your phone number, and this phone number has to match the phone number which has been provided by the administrator at the time of configuring or onboarding your identity. Okay, and then you'll be sent an OTP. You need to enter that OTP, and then it's going to fetch in all the details that the administrator must have provided at the time of provisioning you, right? You can add your photo, and then finally you need to set up the PIN code for your, this PIN code is required as a second factor, or you could say, let's say that the Face ID did not work for some reason, right? Because it is kind of subjective to how your phone works when it comes to Face ID recognition, right? So you can also set up a PIN code, right? So you can either authenticate to it with the Face ID, or you could also use PIN code, right? So you can set this PIN code, and that's it. You're enrolled. So there are no agents involved. There is no use of any passwords, right? You're not installing any agent to give you the VPN access, because this is not really a VPN. This is purely a TCP communication which is taking place. And of course, you have the negotiations of the best cipher suites which your browser supports, right? And then you're not really using any passwords. You're going for a biometric authentication, or you could go for multi-factor authentication. That's totally up to how you would want to have it, right? So end-to-end encryption, there is no offloading that's taking place. End-to-end as in you are not really offloading your traffic onto CyberArk Alero. CyberArk Alero is just going to forward that. It's going to do SSL forwarding, and it's going to forward your traffic to the end time, right? It's of easy access. The whole thing is protected by CyberArk. And what kind of information is being stored on the cloud? This is the common question that is being asked. Only basic details such as your name, your last name, your phone number. That's it. That is going to be stored inside the cloud, not more than that. So when it comes to key features that Alero has to offer, it offers you zero trust access for remote employees and vendors. And we can see that we were not using any VPNs and passwords, nothing. Right? Biometric authentication, it could work on the basis of your face ID, and then at the time of enrollment you're just using a QR code. That's very seamless and very easy to do. It's easily provisionable, as in there is no time or there is no complexity involved at the time of provisioning, right? It's very straightforward. Complete visibility, of course, whenever you are accessing any resource from the CyberArk Alero, right? The whole session that you are accessing it's getting recorded, and since it is getting recorded, you can use it at any point of time. You can see what exactly did the administrator do, or what exactly did the consultant do, and with the privileged threat analytics PTA server in place, it will be able to point you out to the same location where there was some activity that of concern taking place. For example, let's say that if the consultant tried to change the registry keys or anything which is not really allowed in your organization, in that case it will be flagged. The sessions, that particular time will be flagged, right? And then you can of course skip to that particular point of time, and then you can see what exactly was the activity done, and then you can of course carry out your audit. Right? What are the benefits of Alero? It improves your overall security. It's easy to deploy. You integrate it with CyberArk, right? And then there is no performance impact in the end, because you're not installing any agents, nothing. You're not opening ports. There is no packet flow taking place, right? So it's very straightforward over here. Now, let's jump into the demo. So this is a demo instance. So I'm going to start the demo. Right now, this demo is just to configure, just to show you how exactly you can configure or onboard a particular account onto the CyberArk Alero. As in, let's say that there is a consultant who's working for my Acme organization. So how would you provision him the access to certain resources that he might be requiring to do so and so task? Okay? So you just log into the tenant admin, right? And then you log in using the QR code, and then you have logged in. And then you see sites, you see users, activities, all those details. You can download the connector from here, and this is the connector which you need to integrate it with your PVWA component. Right? And then you need to click on users, right? And then now you are outsourcing a particular activity. Let's say that you have outsourced, let's say, penetration testing. He's about to do a penetration testing. So what you could do is that you can click on invite and then CyberArk core pass, and then you need to provide his details over here. Okay, so I'm going to put in details here: first name, last name, company email address, phone number, then requires admin confirmation. So what happens is that every time he wants to access something, or the activation itself, if it has to be approved by the CyberArk administrator, you can choose this one. If you want to be automated, you can click on automatic confirmation. So the moment he clicks on, the moment he scans his barcode, the activation request will not be sent. He can directly get inside the system. So it's totally up to how you would want to decide the posture, right? And then you can decide the time frame. As in, let's say that you would want to set up, let's say he should be, if you remember a while back, I had taken an example of, the consultant not diligent about notifying the user that his job has been executed, right? So in that case, to tackle such issues, what you could do is you can provision the time of activation, or you could say the period through which the account will be active, right? After which it will be automatically deactivated, right? You need to set up all these details, and then you need to click on invite, right? And the end customer or the consultant, he gets his email that, hey, you have been invited by CyberArk Alero, right? You need to click on verify email, and then this page comes up which has the tenant tenant ID, right? Tenant URL associated, and all you need to do is use your Android or iOS, right, to download CyberArk Alero application. Download this application, then all you need to do is either associate a face ID, that's up to you. Then you enter your phone number. At this point of time, what it is going to do is it is going to check if this barcode will be having all the information. First of all, this barcode is going to have all the information which your administrator might have configured at the time of provisioning you. All right, so it's going to match if the phone number entered is correct or not, and then you get the code. You enter the code, it fetches all the details, and optionally you can add your face, your photo. Then you click on next, and then you can set up a PIN code here. Okay, so PIN code has another use, and another use would be, let's say that you have deleted let's say that you lost your phone or something happened, the phone gets broken or something, you buy a new phone. So in that case, you don't really have to re-enroll or something. You just need to download that application, and then you need to enter your PIN code, and it'll ask you a couple of questions, and then that's pretty much it. You have the same access again. Okay, and you have successfully joined CyberArk PaaS. That's it. Okay. I need to skip it for now. Then scan the QR code. Then you have access to the systems. Now you can see whatever we had provisioned for this particular user, he has access to it. Okay? So all he needs to do is click on this, and then he has the PVWA component access, just like how PVWA looks. So he can click on connect, and then another window opens up using HTML5 gateway, and he has access to the end resource. So, and you can see his session is being recorded. Right? Now, let's close it up. Now, if Mike wants, Mike can also go to his PVWA server and monitor whatever was done by John Smith, right, the consultant. So what he does is that he opens his PVWA server, and then you can see that there is a recording which has been found for John Smith. Right? You just need to click on this one, and then it says that there was a risk score associated with it, and you can see that the risk was high. So you would want to see, let's say that you would want to see what exactly was done in this recording which raised this flag. You could just click on play, and then you will be able to see what exactly was being done. So a PowerShell was being opened as an administrator, right? netplviz command was typed in. Right? So some activity was being done which was flagged as red, right? User account modification in this case. You can close the recording, and that's pretty much it. So this is how you can provision the access to the end user. It could be a remote employee or a consultant, anyone, right? And then you don't open any ports. You give them access securely, and then you offer them flexibility, a good GUI experience, etc. Right? So that's pretty much it for this session. So if you have any questions, you can always write back to us, and then we can have another detailed session, and then that should also be fine, right? So thank you very much for joining. Have a great day. Thank you.